Hello, I'm Larissa. Welcome to Goblins of Discord. I forgot that I had typed a bunch of people and didn't upload them, didn't finish editing and uploading, and then I accidentally deleted all the native files because my computer's always bloated. So I'm just gonna do a bunch of speed typings on some of the people that I already typed, although I don't even remember what I landed on for Roxane Gay. Um, okay. Roxane Gay. So she's a writer. She wrote Hunger. She wrote Bad Feminist. I mean, Hunger, that kind of has a seven-ish flavor to it, I guess, with the gluttony, the sin of seven, but I don't think she has seven in her type, main type or try. Bad Feminist is interesting. I find her funny. I don't know if she's still that active on Twitter, but she used to be a long time ago, and she had a nemesis. I remember she used to post about her nemesis, which made me laugh. And I do feel like 3, 4, 7, 8 space, wherever there's typological overlap, there's some kind of nemesis, is what I think. Um, I am leaning 9 wing 8 6 4 for her, but I haven't looked at her for a while, obviously. Like I said, I kind of forgot. Think she might be a social self-pres. What's interesting to me about Roxane Gay is that sometimes it's hard to tell a gut type from a self-pres dom, self-preservation dom, because there is like this boundaried gut presence with self-pres dom where it's like, you know, my boundaries, my existence, my sense of um physicality, but also gut types have that, right? And nines, you know, nines are in some weird ways not in their body. They're disembodied from their body as a gut type, but there's still that sort of boundaried autonomous thing that goes on with gut types. So if you just like look at her, she she kind of has like a little bit of that wing 8 9. She looks kind of like a 9 wing 8 with a 4 fix to me, but it's a little bit hard to describe. This is something that I've been working on behind the scenes a little bit, but it's kind of like an Eeyore kind of thing. And the wing 8 as this sort of disinterested, negative energy, especially with 6 and 4 behind the 9 positive vibing that comes through visually, that comes through in the face, where she kind of almost has this sort of, it's like she's smiling, but there's kind of a little bit of a villain energy or like a don't fuck with me energy, even as a 9. And I think that like a lot of 9s don't like the description of 9s because it's like, what do you mean self-erasing? Like, what do you mean I don't stand up for myself? Like this kind of stuff. It's like a lot of 9s do have like very strong boundaries. And I do think like, I think what she talks about in masterclass. So yeah, I've been binge watching a bunch of masterclass videos, and so I'm going to be releasing a bunch of videos on a bunch of the people who have done masterclass videos because I don't know, it's a 7. I can't get enough. I need to be learning all the time. It's my escape hatch. Where was I going with this? She does talk about like her weight and how she it sounded like she gained weight to protect herself from maybe like abuse. And I do think that that is actually like a thing that can happen. I mean, maybe that's type independent, but I think that it can happen with gut types because I've actually heard a similar story from an 8 before, or somebody I think is an 8. I think she's very talented and she definitely doesn't put up with bullshit. So if she is a 9 wing 8, I think that this is just something to look at because again, like I think there's a lot of descriptions of 9s that frustrate 9s. Anyways, I'm kind of rambling, so I just pulled these two up. I don't I didn't prepare this. I don't remember what happened on the call that I deleted, so
welcome to Hot Level of Self-Exposure.
And yeah, I'm not sure if she's social self-pres or self-pres social. She has a social self-pressy kind of thing about her. Because she does a bit of the megaphone and like talking about social issues, but she's very in her body and the physical experience, like as with her type called or her book called Hunger. But again, it could just be related to the nine wing eight thing.
Extraordinary candor about your own life. And it strikes me that writing about it, presumably a solitary occupation, is one thing, but then speaking about it in public is quite another.
It is. It is.
Over the years, has the speaking about it become easier?
It has. I'm actually afraid of public speaking, and that's why I'm a writer. And I never anticipated in my career that I would be speaking about anything in.
And okay, you can say that any type can be afraid of public speaking, but I think especially withdrawn types, especially nines, I think sixes also, but I think that nines, because they're withdrawn gut types, and there's that fear of conflict, there's the fear of saying or doing the wrong thing again, especially with six, where it's like, or like what kind of like cascading domino effect is all of this going to have? Is this going to like harm me? um and again, like I think like a lot of types, like I feel like trying to like explain things sometimes where it's like this seems to lean more this type, but then people get annoyed with that, so it's like, well, there's certain traits or things that are human experience, but they tend to skew towards certain types. So Karen, just stay out of my inbox. I do think that nines specifically can have a whole self-expression thing. I personally have a self-expression wound, but I'm a seven. But I think that like the nine one is like that fear of vocalizing how you feel, and it can manifest in ways where sometimes nines actually can't verbalize what they feel, and it comes out as kind of mumbly, jumbly, you know? And so if you're a nine, you probably know what I'm talking about.
Public. But the more you do something, the more habituated you get, and it does get easier. And
That's also the nine thing too, is this is where nines can kind of like accidentally align to three, because it's like if you just like keep doing the competency thing, if you just keep doing the skill or the thing that makes you uncomfortable, some like you can just kind of zone out and like get into a nice flow with it, and then you're not going to be worrying about it so much.
I tend to speak in front of very receptive crowds. And so that also makes it a lot easier. And I stand by everything I've ever written. So that helps.
I talked about
She's cute. And I stand by everything I've ever written. I think that that's maybe like her six and her four. Like I think if she's wing eight, six, four, that makes her triple reactive, which is like triple realness, triple truth, triple, I say like authenticity. I say what I think, and what I mean. And so that's going to be like a high value for her, like a high importance for her to be authentic and not pussyfooting around. Oops.
self exposure being scary. Does it feel scary even now?
It's always terrifying. I have very firm boundaries, even though people seem to think I don't, but I have very firm.
Okay, this is a nine thing right here. Okay, so fear of being seen. Fear of being seen is a nine thing. Specifically, I know a lot of nines get annoyed, like, well, everybody has fear of, no, they don't. It's nine specifically. Nines fear being seen. I think threes can have a fear of being seen like how they really are. Behind the mask, but nines have the fear of being seen. And and then the boundary thing. So nines, and specifically nine wing eights, can get kind of like riled up about their boundaries, and they can feel like, like I'm asserting my boundaries, but on the to the people on the outside world, they might not see it the same way, because if you get like an actual eight or a one, or like, like somebody with an eight fix or a one, they're more like imposing. It's not like they're being firm with their boundaries. It's like they're imposing their existence and reality on you. And so when nines are like, I have firm boundaries. It's like, I say no. I say no. I don't do what I don't want to do. But eights are more just like, they're not even registering your request because everything happens on their terms. That's it. And ones, it's like, I don't even know what ones do. It's like, you will do things the way I say to do them. So I don't know what that was.
Boundaries. You know what I am willing for you to know, but when you
You
have to
know,
make
you
a phone
know what I'm willing for you to know. Fucking so nine wing eight right here. I hope this is helpful to people who have been type nine wing eight that disagree with their types, but I'm not very good at explaining stuff about this stuff until I put it on paper.
so vulnerable on the page and you can't control what people are going to do with that information, it's terrifying because people have a lot of very specific ideas about bodies, about women, about sexuality. And so it's a
Yeah, and she's concerned about how I think this is her six fix, where it's like, how are other people going to receive this? What are they going to project onto me? Will it be misinterpreted as malicious or something that it's not? Like, I think it's that six kind of aspect that can show up in different ways in various people's types. But especially, I think, because she's not social last, so whether she's self-pres social or social self-pres, it's like she has that contextual awareness of how is this going to affect people and how is that going to be reflected back to me.
risk every time and it's terrifying. And from the beginning of my career, I've always just told myself, don't worry, girl, no one's going to read it. And
Which patently is not true.
it's not true, but I'm still very good at telling myself that lie.
Yeah, and I think she's four fixed. I mean, this can sometimes just be six stuff, being self-deprecating and whatever, but she has that 964 kind of Eeyore thing that I noticed specifically with nine wing 864s. I'm not trying to like shit on Roxane. I think she's fucking cool, but a lot of them have like that kind of Eeyore thing of like, or sigh, like, I'm not, nobody understands, or like people are gonna misunderstand, and um, I don't know, I'm not that good, and
And so I try to just forget that there's an audience at the other end of it. And I try to say what needs to be said for the good of the piece.
I think
say what needs to be said for the good of the piece. So she's doing her type. I think she must be social self-pres. I'm just gonna go with that. Social self-pres nines, especially with six, I think there is like that higher calling to do something that's actually helpful and truthful. Um, yeah, because the social self-pres nines are more like the philosophers or like the teachers, like the people who want to disseminate something useful.
many people see you as very brave, courageous.
And
Are
they're more
those
and they're more
words
political, and she's pretty political.
that mean anything to you?
She came from Margaret Atwood too. Because Margaret Atwood called herself in an article. I'm gonna type Margaret Atwood, by the way. Margaret Atwood said something about, oh, she called herself a bad feminist for saying something, and then Roxane Gay was like, I said it first, kind of thing, which is funny because I get, like I've said on other videos, I equate the whole like you copied me, that's my thing, with like the 3 4 7 8 sort of axis. And I think that Roxane Gay is like a nine wing eight, probably four wing three in the heart space and six wing seven in the headspace, but I don't know.
I respect why people think that, but I'm terrified. I simply do it and have found the ability to tolerate fear and to tolerate discomfort. So, no, I'm not.
Yeah, and again, this is sort of like a nine wing eight flex. Again, that I think that a lot of nine wing eights are like, like this is literally bragging about being able to be peaceful. I'm tolerant. I'm diplomatic. I can sit with discomfort. I mean, she's not doing this to brag, but this is sort of where I think I'm kind of like relating this to my typing calls indirectly, but it's like where a lot of nine wing eights don't realize what they're doing, where it's like I'm making things comfortable. I'm looking at it from above. I'm able to like see it from all angles, and I'm processing it. I'm holding space for it. I'm not I'm not going to be reactive and crazy. That's the realm of six core and four maybe. I don't know.
Brave, like brave people are actually brave, and I'm just a writer, and I think it's really important to have just a scale of understanding like what courage actually is.
You are a writer.
Yeah, and I think that that may be like her 6 wing 7 fix a little bit, because I think that like 7 wing 6, 6 wing 7 space can be aware of like courage, and I think when her wing 8 too, because 8 plus 6 is kind of like warrior energy. It's the justice fighter sort of thing. So she's like, I'm not that, but she kind of is a little bit. So she's like, I'm not courageous. She doesn't have ego around that the way like a 6 8 8 6 might. But she's conscious of it, and I tend to notice that we are conscious often of our wing patterns and our fixed patterns, but we're not really doing it. We're just conscious of it.
And you've written all sorts of books. You've written fiction and non-fiction. You've written memoir. You've even contributed to a comic book series.
Mm-hmm.
You do a podcast. I mean, you are very creative and very busy, but it would be fair to say, would it not, that one book, if one wants to understand Roxane Gay, one book is at the heart of it, and that's Hunger. Would you agree with that?
I think either Hunger or Bad Feminist, but I think mostly Hunger because it's my most personal book. It's my memoir, and in it I write about my life, and it's.
I don't have a very good argument for her being 4 fixed, other than I just feel archetypally she fits 9 6 4, so I'm just gonna keep watching.
It's about living in a fat body in a world that is fairly inhospitable to fat bodies. And you will.
Well, actually, I guess this would be on the 2 4 axis, what she's kind of doing. It's like she sort of made her, I don't want to say brand because that's not what it is, but she sort of made her career on talking about sort of the shameful aspects, like culturally or societally shameful things about her, which maybe other types can do too. But I think that like she's kind of leaned into it in a way where it's like, here's this like negative, dark thing about me and my experience, and I'm gonna write about it. Which like 3 hearts are less inclined to do unless they have this like success arc where it's like, I was homeless and now I'm a CEO of my pillow or something. And hers is like, like the world has been really hard to me as like an overweight person, and I'm still overweight. I didn't overcome it. She's just like leaned into it. I think that like 2 fixes can be a little bit like that, but she's definitely not framing it like a 2 fix. This is pure 4. Sort of just especially with like 9 and 6 on top, where it can be the art as a victim kind of narratives. I don't want to call her a victim because I don't think that she views herself as a victim, but it can be taking the thing that society rejects about you or paints as terrible, or you've felt hurt and ostracization for, and turning it into uh, your piece, your thing that you sort of like to share a lot, which is different from people who are like raving activists who are trying to like force down your throat, like, you must accept me. That's not what a 4 fix does. And she's doing, I think, the 4 fix thing where it's more just like, here's my broken self mythology, and I'm not asking you to accept it or to embrace it. I'm just telling you it. So, anyways, I guess I did answer my own. Well, how is this for? Well, that's how.
Have a fair understanding of who I am and how I came to be the person that I am today.
And it wasn't the first time you went public, very public, with the fact that you had been raped. I mean,
No.
gang raped as a 12-year-old girl. But
damn, dude, like, oh, no tact. This is awful.
It was in that book that you essentially told yourself
and she's just receiving it with like a stone face. I mean, she has talked about it, but it's like the fact that he's just casually bringing it up on the show is like so tacky.
world that this experience was absolutely the defining moment of my life. There was a before the rape and there was an after the rape. And the girl that
It's kind of grossing me out how he's talking about it. I think that the 469 try specifically has a melancholy about the past. And I think people with 469 influence on their type, whether it's wings or whatever, there is like a past things were better and things got worse, and I can't move on from things got worse. And I have a little bit of this in my personality type. Um, yeah.
Sheltered. I have two amazing parents who have been married for 50 years. I had two brothers, and we were very close. We are very close.
Yeah, and so here's sort of where she's doing more the like attachment framing, especially maybe nine, where it's like, I want you to know that like my parents were good. My parents were good to me. My family was good. This thing happened, but it's not like a reflection on these people that I love, that I care about.
Surviving brother, and so,
Of course, what I just said is reductive. Thank you, Karen.
so when this thing happened, I didn't have any context for it. I didn't know anything like that could happen to a person. And because I was just so wildly unprepared, it just shattered me. It did. And it took me many, many years to begin to try and put the pieces of myself back together.
in the book, you write about it in a very spare but deeply affecting way. And I don't want to go into the detail now, except to say that one important factor was that the boy who led the gang of youths who did this to you was a boy you knew well. In fact,
Absolutely.
you kind of regarded him as your boyfriend.
I did. I mean, I was very naive and I was very shy. We moved around.
Yeah, and so she's talking about this very heavy subject that this guy is bringing up, but she's doing it with kind of like a smile on her face. She's very peaceful about it. She's not getting animated. So positive and positive gut, meaning there's sort of a calmness. It's like, yeah, like, and then I think six wing seven head doesn't strike me as nine seven. So I think seven in the head center, and people with eight, seven, whatever, can often be like, I'm not a victim. Don't ever put me in that category. But she's sort of like just embraced it. She's not self-victimizing. Like I think like the type in my experience anecdotally that really actively self-victimizes is the 6/8 stem. She's using it as like a part of her painting of her life, how to understand why I am this way. And she's not trying to shove it down anybody's throat. She's just expressing her kind of grief and pain.
Around a lot. And so I didn't have a lot of friends. And I thought, oh, he likes me. And he would tell me, oh, we're boyfriend, girlfriend. And I would, we're not very smart at 12. I believed him.
And I think that this also speaks to actually nine and six fears, because nine, in my opinion, so I know that it's not one of the core fears like in the literature, the Enneagram literature, but what I've observed anecdotally with nines, especially nine wing eights, is that they have a real fear of abandonment. And then obviously the six fear of betrayal. So eights can have the fear of betrayal too. Sixes, it's like my tribe turns on me, and like her boyfriend turned on her and she was abandoned. So she actually lived like one of her like her type main fears at the age of 12, like in a very brutalistic, horrifying fashion that probably had like a very strong impact on her nervous system, and has probably made her like a very guarded, boundaried person actually as a result, and also probably why she identifies as like a very boundaried person, because it's like kind of key to her ego's survival on some level.
And he took advantage of that in the worst possible way. And he and his friends did this terrible thing. And then, of course, had a very different narrative about what happened.
It's very hard for me to imagine how that girl came out of that experience and survived and made a life. But a key fact is that you were unable to share this total traumatic experience with your family, with your parents. You just couldn't.
I couldn't. My parents, who are wonderful and who have since.
I guess maybe I'll add a trigger warning in the title to this one. But again, it's like, I think after trauma, any type could potentially not be able to vocalize what happened. But I think specifically for nines, it's even harder to verbalize when a trauma happens to you, because nines are the body type, and it is the diffuse, withdrawn type that can feel that sense of self-erasing or I don't matter, and not knowing how to become like the center point of like what might end up being like a witch hunt or something, like where that might actually be like more scary to the nine than the actual thing that traumatized them to begin with.
Told me I should have told them, and they're right. I should have told them, but I was terrified, and we were raised Catholic, and I thought that what had happened was a sin, and that I would go to hell. And so I didn't know that it wasn't sex. And so I just thought, I've had premarital sex, and in such a really just grotesque way, I can't tell anyone. And so
it doesn't make me so sad that happened to her. I feel pretty good about her type, but I don't want to end it on that. I sometimes regret not vetting the videos first, but YOLO.
Man-hating, sex-hating women. When I was younger, mostly in my teens and 20s, I had strange ideas about feminists as hairy, angry, man-hating, sex-hating women, as if those are bad things. These days, I look at how women are treated the world over, and anger in particular seems like a perfectly reasonable response. But
interesting, and obviously all types experience anger, but gut types are anger types. So this is sort of interesting that there's this like churning, maybe background narrative for her.
Back then, I worried about the tone people used when suggesting I might be a feminist. The feminist label was an accusation. It was an F word and not a nice one. I was labeled a woman who doesn't play by the rules, who expects too much, who thinks far too highly of myself by daring to believe I am equal, superior to a man. You don't want to be that rebel woman until you realize that you very much are that woman and cannot imagine being anyone else. As I got older, I began to...
Yeah, and her whole narrative is the rebellious outcast. She's kind of doing the 964 469 694 whatever try thing, which is like outcast, rebel with a cause, I think, with social self-pres. So yeah, that would really be like the social self-pres 469 try, rebel with a cause, because she has 6 and 9 sick, like attachment in the head center and the gut center, so she's part of the world, part of the grid, part of what everybody else is doing. And then her 4 heart that's like, but I'm not like them, exactly, I'm different, I have struggles, like I'm deeper. Maybe she wouldn't associate or identify as like I'm deeper, but I've seen more maybe, or like I've dealt with more than your average person. So that's, I think, sometimes how the 4 shows up with 6 and 9, where it's like I'm more put upon, I'm more traumatized. Again, I'm not saying she's doing this, but the ego is sort of running that program in the background.
Accept that I am indeed a feminist and a proud one. I hold certain truths to be self-evident. Women are equal to men. We deserve equal pay for equal work.
Yeah, and again, this is kind of like the 6 stuff. 6-9, 6E, social, self-prezi, equality, social issues. We deserve the same things kind of narrative. Again, I know this is kind of thing that a lot of people are like, that's something everyone cares about. It's honestly not something everybody cares about.
We have the right to move through the world as we choose, free from harassment or violence. We have the right to easy, affordable access to birth control and reproductive services. We have the right to make choices about our bodies.
Look at these women in the audience. It's just like going right through them like a fucking ghost train. They're just sitting there absorbing it and not hearing anything. This is so depressing.
Free from legislation.
Like these fucking TED Talk tech chicks, like you people were not worthy of Roxane Gay's TED Talk.
Of oversight or evangelical doctrine. We have the right to respect. There's more. When we talk about the needs of women, we have to consider the other identities we inhabit. We are not just women. We are people with different bodies, gender expressions, faiths, sexualities, class backgrounds, abilities, and so much more. We need to take into account these differences and how they affect us as much as we account for what we have in common.
Yeah, and again, this is a lot of 6996 stuff. I think especially not social last. How do we all fit together? We have to like show respect for each other. This sort of like undercurrent of togetherness through our differences. Yeah.
Without this kind of inclusion, our feminism is nothing.
Yeah, and even just the inclusion part of it is so 6996. It's such a horrifying concept to me, the concept of inclusion. It honestly like creates some kind of ire inside of me because it's like I've had people lecture me before. It's like, well, Larissa, you have to make space at the table. It's like, what table? What table? What table am I at? If I'm at a table, I made that table myself. Go get your own fucking table, bitch. Like that's how I feel about it, anyways. So it's like that kind of like attachment, 6'9", 369, whatever thing that goes on where it's like inclusion. You made a thing and now I want to be a part of it, so you should include me. And it's like, why? Why? So she has like Hexed in her self-image and her heart center, but she has attachment in her head and her gut. So she has enough attachment that it's she cares about this stuff, I guess.
Thing.
I don't think she's 3 and 4 fixed. I just really don't.
I hold these truths to be self-evident, but let me be clear. I'm a mess. I am full of
Oh, this is perfect. I'm a mess. I'm full of contradictions. Yes, you are.
Contradictions. There are many ways in which I'm doing feminism.
Yeah, this is perfect. Okay, so every time I'm like, how do I make the point about her 4 fix? This is perfect. She's a mess. This is 4 positive self-identification with negative self-image, which is like exacerbated by 6 and 9. You know, I'm a loser. I'm not cool. I'm doing it wrong. So she identifies as a feminist when her 6 and her 9 centers and her social self-pressiness, but she's doing it wrong. So I'm not like you. And this is the thing with like 4. And people probably with 4 just as a fix who are not into the Enneagram would be like cringing or something to have like a self-analysis of like, here's what you're doing, but it's like, I'm with you, but I'm not like you. It's like, no, I am. I get it. I'm a feminist too, but I'm doing it bad. I'm doing it wrong. And it's like the 4 self-image having to separate, but 4 self-image separation through 6 and 9, where 6 and 9 is above 4, is like through like it's more like I'm a loser. I'm like I don't get it. I'm awkward, like this kind of thing. So when you have a 4 core, it's a whole different story because 4 cores are like insufferable. But as a fix with 9 and 6, it's more just like self-defeating program.
I'm wrong. I have another confession. When I drive to work, I listen to thuggish rap at a very loud volume.
Yeah, and again, she's sort of like, you know, I'm going against the norm, but she's using it with her 6 head for humor.
Even though the lyrics are degrading to women, these lyrics offend me to my core. The classic Yin Yang Twins song Salt Shaker, it is amazing.
Yeah, I love her. I think 469 try is my favorite try of all the tries. She's doing it so perfectly because it really is like, here's what I think, but also I'm doing the opposite. And they'll own that they're doing the opposite, whereas you get a lot of like 963s who won't own that they're being hypocrites. But 4 fix will like own that they're a hypocrite because it's like positive self-image almost in some ways because it's like I'm gonna out myself, you know. Anyways, I'm kind of rambling, so I'm just gonna end it. But yeah, check out her books. I really like Roxane Gay. She's fucking funny, you know, and if you are a 9, 6, you might like her stuff. Um, yeah. I don't know what she's been up to lately, so hopefully, well, it doesn't really matter actually, but I think she's cool, so yeah, check her out and hope you enjoyed this video, and if not, I don't know, save it for your notes app, Karen. And if you want to get typed by me, you can book below. Oh wait, so social self-pres, 9 wing 8, 6 wing 7, 4 wing 3. Didn't really go into the wings, but 6 wing 7, she's got that positive insecure. Like 6 wing 7's more insecure and sort of like, what do you think? I'm okay. Like there's like that kind of more openness and curiosity for other people's opinions and not as rigid. And the head center, and she's not super serious. She seems like she's probably fun to drink with, or I don't know if she drinks or not, but and 4 wing 3, I mean, I don't get the whole like curated aesthete whatever thing, but that usually is only if someone's like high 4 wing 3. I don't think it's 4 wing 5. Um, Makes sense to me that she has triple attachment and she has, and she would have like her hex influences are 4, 7, and 8. So that's double assertive and double frustration and double reactive. So, anyways, yeah. Bye.